Welcome to Beyond the Buzzer.
Hi, I'm Josh, and this is my best friend Kyle.
You might recognize us. We are rural American high school athletes from the 90s, after all.
And we're here again on camera after 30 years to bring you our travels from
Beyond the Buzzer.
Hey guys, it's been a minute, but we are back here on Beyond the Buzzer. I am Josh, aka Ace One. This is my friend Kyle, the Duke.
Hello,
How's it going?
Going well, going well. How are you doing, my friend?
Good. We've seen each other a few times, but we haven't been able to get to the blog hooked back up because we're old. Everybody has children and many lessons in school, and soon we're going to wrap back up their European vacation. But we had a unique opportunity. I was talking to my old man. He's up there in his 70s, and we noticed that the Stones were going back on tour. They're 80 and 81, but it's the music I was raised on. And we have my daughter living close to Boston in Vermont, and the Stones were playing Foxborough. So I called my dad. I said, "Look, we got a chance to go see the Stones again. What do you think? Celebrate Eden's birthday?" And he's like, "Yeah, man." So he got the trip put together. So we got a little family reunion. I'm bringing my son, and talking to Kyle. I was like, "Man, we're going to Boston. There'd be some fun stuff to do there. Like, what should I do while I'm there? Have you ever been?" He said, "No, no." And Kyle is a big baseball fan, so he suggested maybe trying to go to Fenway. So Chris and Eden are big baseball fans. I talked to them. My son was in. My dad is now has known Kyle for like 35 years, but now I think he's even got more points than ever because getting Fenway crossed off his bucket list was a huge deal. So to see my dad and Kyle together there at Fenway with my boy was pretty cool, and my girl and everybody else, my son-in-law.
Pretty surreal. So hence the title of this
Yeah.
episode. Please come to Boston, because we talked about this for a long time, and I didn't think I was going to be able to pull it off. And
No,
the stars just aligned. And when we found out the Red Sox were at home that weekend, well, then we just figured out a way to make it work. So here we are.
yeah. I had to do a couple day journey in the car. Kyle got some pretty easy flights back and forth, so we got a sweet Airbnb and we put it all together. So here we're going to show you the first this is a Kyle coming Eve, I guess, because we're at the Stones concert.
Yes.
And
So I'll
so
let
he
Ace One take it from here for a minute.
yeah, so he missed he wasn't able to come to this. It was not part of the plan. It was just a last minute thing for him to be able to put Fenway tickets together. So we went ahead and bought Fenway tickets because I knew he'd be able to pull it off. If not, we're going to get rid of those to somebody. But we'd already had the Stones ones in motion before he could commit, so he missed this. But got to see it with my dad, my son, and my daughter, and my new son-in-law. And I I could just all I can say is the Stones are unbelievable. Don't ever give up on your dreams. If you love what you're doing, keep doing it because it's a lot of fun. You got 50,000 people coming out there, and you're this age and playing some of the best music on the planet. It was great. Boston crowd was fun. It rained all day, cleared up. So that's my Stones story.
Pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. So then the next day I roll up and we don't waste much time and we're headed out for Fenway.
No, I went pick Kyle up to the airport or from the airport, and there's a lot of tunnels in and out of Boston. It was not easy to navigate the Silverado, but we made it, and then we came directly down to the game after we unpacked and came to this place Eventide. And
Which you'll
look at
see,
the
you'll
oyster
be able
selection.
to see you'll see the view of the stadium that we had
Good
from
old
our
Boston.
table, basically. So there's the menu.
Yeah,
Probably the best, you'll see it, the best lobster roll I've ever tasted in my life.
it was a foodie spot. I thought this is just a stadium spot to feed the tourists with some fish and chips and quick meals, but their lobster roll was the best I've had. We talked to the waiter. He said it's in town it's really known for their food and drinks. And so if you're going close to Fenway, pop in here and treat yourself because they've got everything you could ever love.
Those are Mai Tais. They were incredible too. Stole a little sip.
Super fun.
They were good.
Delicious,
Fried
refreshing.
calamari, also delicious. So the oyster shooters we had, which you'll see some pictures of others, but man, did we both get the oyster vodka? I believe we did.
There was an oyster vodka selection, which kicked it up a notch, and then the brine was really good. So they had a martini one. They had one that was like a Caesar or Bloody Mary. They had one that was spicy with jalapenos, and one with a mignonette. I think I said that.
I think that's the one I got. Which those are coming up, but this was our view of Fenway from where we were sitting in the restaurant.
That was right out of our table.
I believe that's home plate that
which of course we didn't realize till after we sat at the table and looked over our
We're
shoulder.
like, oh, there it is. But yeah, so this was the Bloody Mary type.
Bloody Mary one.
And I'd just like to go on record to say I think oyster vodka tastes better than regular vodka.
It's so briny, and you know, you got to spend money when you're on vacation, but these are $8. You get an oyster and a shot for $8. I think that's a decent deal.
There's Ace One finishing up his shot.
Oh,
So there, if you want to see if I can zoom in real quick.
you can
So
see
yeah,
the
so you had
different.
dirty, a spicy, a bloody. What does that say? Cute.
We'll go with kook because it's like
Yeah.
a freshly juiced one.
Yeah. So yeah, pause it, zoom in on it if you want to take a look at those. But they were excellent. There's the lobster roll that I got. Oh,
And it was the bread. The texture was like,
yes,
it was just
it was
doughy and
perfect.
buttery and just
Perfect.
warm.
So good. I wish I had one right now. There's
And I got, Dad and I got the oyster po' boys. I think
Yeah.
there was a chicken sandwich and a salad on the other side and the calamari, and everybody was very impressed.
Yeah. So here we all are taking our shots, our oyster shooters. And of course, we just got some French fries.
The fries were fabulous. That place was surprising. And now we're
Yeah.
off to the game against the Tigers. Boston versus the
Yes.
Tigers.
Here's Ace One and the Duke planning their infiltration of Fenway Park.
And representing UK because there's got to be some players on the team from UK. If not, then we just want to advertise that we have a new coach. We're going to be very good next year.
Yes, yes. So here we are.
There's me and my boy and my other boy. It's awesome. It's really fun to have the family. Kyle is coming back up here in a few weeks too, so it's really good. The kids always love seeing him.
So here we are.
And this is my new son-in-law, Chris from Vermont. He's a amazing person. He's a huge baseball fan, music fan, so he'll fit right in. He'll be making some cameos throughout our episodes, I'm sure.
Awesome guy, probably building a fan base right now as we speak.
Yes.
So here we are going through the metal detectors and everything to get into Fenway. And first thing we see is this guy dancing on stilts.
And I think the band was playing Black Sabbath and he was dancing to that, but also the banners along all this wall, the history when you walk in. And it's, I've heard of people going to Fenway. We've never been there, but they block it off so you can just walk down through there and hang out before the game.
And if you're a baseball fan, you've got to go. I mean, this is baseball heaven. I mean,
if you're not, it's a super peaceful, enjoyable day. I'm not a super baseball fan. I do enjoy the game, but crossing, venues like this off is huge.
So this is when Ace One and I decided that we were the ballpark spirits.
Eden's making a little cameo back there. She's part ballpark spirit too.
Yes, yes. And their clubhouse, this is their like their team shop where you go in and buy a bunch of stuff, but it was pretty incredible, to be honest.
It was amazing, historic, all the different colors, all the different color schemes and uniforms they wear, and memorabilia.
Teddy Ball game there. You guys might have heard of him. Some guy called Babe Ruth there with him. They were decent players, you could say.
It was the same stadium they played in. It hadn't changed.
Yeah. And I regret not buying these because these are actual seat backs, I guess, from the old seats. And I just didn't want to carry.
They're like $20 a piece. There's nothing that really. There's not like a plaque that signifies them, so you could say you got it from downtown Heath, but it's from Fenway.
Game used base there. And of course, you can't go to Boston without seeing Larry Bird somewhere.
No, they've got the whole thing chock full, and there's not a picture of Brady, but of course we're gonna have Bird in there.
So here's just more of the store. They got kind of a replica of the Green Monster scoreboard over there on the wall
that they still hand change, which is cool.
Yeah.
So the kids all got hats. Everybody got a Red Sox hat, and Kyle and I stayed with our Kentucky colors, but it's really cool store.
So here we are. We finally went in for the first time. We're just like, we're going to jump in here. I think the kids were looking at something, and we're like, we're just going to jump in here and peek in and look at the field and get a picture of the three of us in front of the Big Green Monster.
And you can get the feel as soon as you walk in. I mean,
you're incredible.
Open the time capsule door and walk out to 1930, get your peanuts and have a seat.
So there's a good view of the monster. it's just surreal just seeing it. Of course, the Sitco sign that's been behind it.
You know, it's been a while since to a major league game. It's so manicured. The field looks so good.
So then, after we saw it for the first time, we had to have our first Fenway beer.
And Dad's representing the church from one of our former episodes,
Yes,
the
you
church
might
brewery up here in Nova Scotia in the Valley.
remember from is that episode 1, I believe. Was that Rex
Yep.
Valley Day? Yeah.
And we'll be revisiting that in a
Our-
couple weeks, guys.
Our hardcore fans will remember. And then there's just a green monster sign
You can
going to the
look
seats.
my dad's out there like he's 12. He can't believe he's at Fenway.
It's very surreal walking in there. And then there's another picture. I took a lot of pictures of the monster because
It's pretty iconic.
and then we started walking around. So this is the out on the left field deck. Of course, it was all shut down, but even the trash cans there are pretty cool.
Yeah, and my
Bad
son
influence.
later got the ice cream and the upside down helmets. You have to do that, so
Absolutely, yes.
he got to bring that home with
And
him.
here's a guy that played a concert there that some of you guys might have heard.
So he's on my wall back there, Sir Paul.
But here's
They've-
the whole just a
Oh, I mean, I had a great time in Boston. The weather was perfect.
Oh
I've
my
been to
gosh.
Boston a few times, but I've never been there like this. And I'm telling you, this is a very heavenly touristy city
So-
that is beautiful to visit this time of year. When we were there in late May, early June.
there's the view from our seats. I mean, you got the city and the skyline in the background. You got the
And it
monster
doesn't even
there.
do it justice. The clouds were moving. It was clear and just a beautiful day there.
And there's the press box there behind home plate.
Old school.
Had to get a picture of myself.
And there was a gentleman that watched our seats right there that was from Boston and been working the seats for a long time and got to talk to Kyle and I a lot about
Yeah.
teams over the years coming and sharing the history. And he was really excited to have some people there to appreciate it and see his park. You know?
Believe it or not, when I started talking to him, he immediately knew I was not from Boston.
And I don't know. I get that every once in a
Yeah.
while
So
when
I'm
I'm not
such a dork. I had to take a screenshot of the first thing I bought just because it said Fenway Park. I believe
And
that was 3 beers and 2 hot dogs for $44, which isn't too bad.
in a tip, you know, it was reasonably priced. I found a lot of parks a lot more expensive, but it was kind though.
So
And then what
more-
a day just to sit
Oh.
there in the sun and just watch the game roll out, have a couple beers with your friends and family,
So that's
eat good food.
That's the short right field porch over there with all the Red Sox retired numbers.
And it goes Kyle explained it's like 380 and then how does that work?
It shoots like here's 380 and right, and it shoots down. I want to say right down the line, it's only like 305.
It's
There's like
interesting.
a
I mean,
sharp
Re-
drop there.
reminded me in baseball how you got to play the park too. It's not just the
Yes.
game.
So here's one of the beers we got when we were there. We got kind of a funny story because we got one of these. I believe it was this actual can. When it emptied, we went back up to the bar to get another one. And I was like, I think I want to take this can home. And the
Well,
bartender,
he wouldn't sell his drinks because you already had a drink here. Like it's an empty can. He said, "Well, you can't just walk around with an empty can." I'm like, "Well, it says Wicked Fenway IPA. I certainly can, and I plan on taking this home." He's like, "Oh,
he's like, well, I didn't hear nothing. And he walked off. And then random man walks up behind us. He's like,
eh."
I've worked security in a lot of places. You're probably not going to get that out of here. It's like, okay. So I put it in my pocket and got out with it very, very easily.
Yeah,
But it did get crushed. So
I've
left
left
it
many events, and usually they're just happy for you to leave. They don't care
yeah,
what you're doing
they were not stopping and checking everybody's cargo shorts pockets.
for empty cans.
So there's the starting lineups for the games that we witnessed with the Red Sox and the Tigers. Again, behind home plate, another shot of the monster. Yeah, they changed those scores by hand between every inning, which was awesome.
There was like there was a story as a couple that did it like throughout their life, and I don't think they just recently retired,
for
but
a
just
long time.
cool history like that.
believe
Wow, that's a great picture.
Yeah. So this is the second batter of the game. You see, there's a guy taking off stealing there. So then we had to go get our Fenway Franks. You got to have a Fenway Frank at Fenway Park.
Yep,
They were quite tasty, by the way.
They hit. They were excellent.
So here it is as it's starting to get darker from our seats, and then there it is at night. Just like I said, I've said it a lot, but it was surreal. It was just incredible.
My son's
Ace 2 here stole the phone and stole my phone and took a selfie.
So he gets thrown on here for doing that. That's
Yep.
what you get.
He's just trying to piggyback off our fame.
He ate all the cotton candy, all the peanuts,
Cracker
everything,
Jacks.
all of it.
So the game had gotten, I wouldn't say out of hand, but Boston had a pretty comfortable lead. So Josh and I was like, we might as well look at the rest of the stadium because when are we ever going to be here again? You know?
Yeah, the game was kind of we'd seen a couple go over the Green Monster, which was that's what you're there for, and they take a stroll around, look at the memorabilia, and to see if we could check out the other seats. So walked all the way from the Green Monster to the Green Monster, full circle.
Yeah. So here's out towards center field. There's a big bar out there.
Cool bars you could get to.
We're going around towards right field, and that would be your seats from the right field bleachers, which wouldn't be too bad either.
Now even where it's blocking, it's got a TV. And Kyle and I, we were pretty, we were all pretty tight. There was 5 of us, I guess, 6 of us. We were all kind of smushed together. A gentleman came in front of us, and or in front of us, or a few rows, there was an empty seat. So Kyle and I went down there and sat in the seats, enjoying the game. He came back, said, "Hey, look, you got to get out of my seats, man. We're going to be here 2 innings, and you have the seats back." So Kyle and I, we got to spread out, and so did the kids and fam upstairs too.
Yeah. So here's another shot from right center where you're looking at that press box behind the plate, which is pretty nice view there. Then we're making our way back around. So the Red Sox did win. So there's the big Red Sox win on the scoreboard. I think that's our last picture of Fenway. Oh, yes, because this was our post game meal. We went to this little sushi place.
Yeah, we wanted to, walk around and feel the nightlife in Boston. So it was, for some of them, that was the only night they were going to be down there. So we walked around and checked out different places and found this cool little sushi bar that everybody from the Red Sox game was pouring into. And of course, other people out from Boston had a hotel next to it with an indoor pool. It was a beautiful scene. And while we were waiting on the table, I walked up to the bar to order us drinks, and I talked to the gentleman next to us. And he said, "While you're here, you have to play wasabi roulette." So what you do is, you get 6 pieces of sushi, and you don't know which one is loaded.
Yeah.
And
there were 6 of us, so everybody got to play. And I won.
He won. When my son was so glad he didn't win, we looked around the table. It didn't hit quite at first. It took it was a delayed response, and then we all knew who the winner was, and it's hilarious. I will never not play this at sushi restaurants from now on.
Yeah. Hopefully that's the only time I win. So then day 2 was when the history nerds and us got to come out, and we really got to tour downtown Boston.
It was Pirates only that day, just the Heath Pirates. My dad and Kyle and myself. Nobody else was allowed, just the Pirates on tour.
So we went down there, and the tour starts every 30 minutes. So the first one we got there was getting ready to start in like 10 minutes, but we were starving. So we're going to grab food. We'll be back.
Starving, a little dehydrated,
Yep. So what better place to rehydrate than a brewery? Because Ace 1 and I are going to find one. And
so we walked down several streets. Each one of them was lined with cool stuff to do. We saw this one, and we were pretty hungry, and we were really in a hurry to get back to the tour because it was my daughter's 26th birthday. We needed to go celebrate that night at the Verbo we got.
Mm-hmm.
So this place is beautiful. You can just see, I want to mention this before we get into the architecture stuff. Like stuff like this, it's all over, but the architecture, the aesthetic of Boston was equal to some of the stuff we saw in London. To be honest, it's an old city, very rich with history and architecture, and it's if you want to take that kind of trip and do it in domestically, I think it's a great way to learn a lot of history.
You're gonna find,
yeah, the best.
So here's just the little brewery we stopped at. It
was called Democracy Brewing.
Democracy Brewing. You can see that we didn't look like we were in the best of moods to start the day.
No, we had celebrated quite hard at Fenway and at the Airbnb. My dad brought the biggest bottle of Woodford Reserve I've ever seen in my life, and luckily we didn't touch that too much. But
so there you can really see our faces.
We're all waking up and preparing. I can't remember what beers we got, but we got a couple of different ones.
The So Pitted, it was an apricot blonde ale, and it was quite tasty.
I think it was the Whippersnapper, the Session IPA.
Yeah,
one was really hazy, and one was a little bit, a little bit not as hazy. You can see them there.
So there they are. Yeah. So I got a German mac and cheese with sausage in it, and it was pretty phenomenal.
It looks great. Looks really great.
Josh went with the tacos there.
I think I just did shrimp tacos. They were cheap and filling, so we were refreshed and ready to
There's the
go.
wall. Yeah, there's the wall on the way out. Pretty cool.
I don't think they know that line in Latin should be in American.
So here we are. We're ready to go learn about Boston.
Boston Common is where the original settlers, the Puritans, had all of the cows and pigs and chickens and the farms back in the day. And
That's this
our-
area here.
there's our tour guide right there underneath the Golden Dome Capitol.
Yeah, which started off as wood, but the wood wouldn't. They kept having to replace it. And then this guy, you might have heard of him. His name was Paul Revere. Covered it in copper for a while, but then the copper started to oxidize
Turn
and turn
green,
green.
yeah.
So then they decided to go with gold. Now he said it costs a lot of money.
Lots of millions to keep that up.
keep that.
But they love that in New England. They want to show their importance.
And our tour guide, by the way, his character was Crispus Attucks, which if you don't know who he is, we'll be telling you here soon. But he was great. He was fully in character and had a great attitude and energy, and it was a lot of fun.
So if you go to Boston Comedy, just go to the little visitor's house, check in. They've got tours running almost every day, every hour, every 30 minutes. And it's like $17 a person. And you could put on the headphones and do it by yourself, but having the person in period costume with that energy was great. He was excellent.
And he also, and he threw in a few little extra tidbits. So our first major stop here, we're going into this cemetery. This is the third oldest cemetery in Boston, and see the plaque there. So Paul Revere is inside. So here's a few pics of that.
It's I can't talk enough about going in late May and early June. The weather was perfect. Every walk in there's so many little corners and tucked away little parks we could get into, and the vibes were good in all these little areas, little green spaces.
So this first major marker we stopped at is a man named James Otis. That name might not be familiar, but the saying he came up with probably is. I believe his exact quote was, "Taxation without representation is tyranny," which started the famous Boston slogan, "No taxation without representation."
Yep, because they apparently sent a bunch of tea and wanted them to just say, "Hey, we're going to pay the taxes," and they were overpaying taxes. So that's a very fundamental part of our country.
And he talked about the Boston Tea Party, and I believe he said in today's money that it was about $1.3 million worth of tea they threw overboard or something.
It was a big middle finger to the Queen.
So again, here's just this, massive. And they said the headstones didn't used to be like this. They just lined them up because they got difficult to mow around. So they used to just be in a random pattern.
So they have no clue how many people's buried here.
Yeah. So of course the biggest one in there belongs to John Hancock. Why wouldn't it?
Biggest signature and biggest tombstone. He was cocky.
Yeah, you could say just a bit. And this one we just took a picture of. There's a lot of headstones in there with pirate related.
Yeah, so the
graphics.
big movement, and a lot of Catholics came in from France and Ireland, especially later on. But there were some a lot of just renegades and pirates that were buried, and they were marked on there as well.
Yep. So here's John Hancock again. Then we're getting over. This is Paul Revere, and they say people throw pennies up there because Paul Revere worked with copper.
He was a silversmith and coppersmith or something.
Sign of respect to put copper on his tombstone. And this one this actually might be the biggest one, but it says Franklin on it, and of course our tour guide was like, "Yep, that's Ben Franklin's parents' grave." So that is
so Benjamin was raised there, and he was educated there, and like other people, they like to leave their hometown. And he was over to England, where we saw his house before, and then he was down to Philadelphia, but definitely got to start his education in Boston. And this grave right here, so these little raised graves, you think they're just open it and there's a body there. No, it's even more amazing. There's a staircase to a crypt that's underneath it, which is really creepy.
just
So I
filled
never knew
with
that about
bodies,
these
and
things.
that's what all these are. So yeah, remember that next time you go walking around the graveyard.
Yeah, but the first brave people that sailed weeks across the ocean and came up with new ideas and different ways to do things, different experiments. It's all cool that they had this new land.
Yeah. So this is Paul Revere. This was his actual grave, but it got so big and so popular that they had to put a bigger one. And we're going to call Paul Revere out a little bit because our tour guide did, and it was a pretty interesting story. So I guess when the the poem came out about the midnight ride of Paul Revere, that's when his popularity really soared. And we found out that of the people that went on the midnight ride, he probably did the least of his group. Would that be fair to
Yeah, yeah.
say?
Well, I mean, yeah, he lit the torch and he got the signal going. He started rounded up a buddy to go out there with him. They stumbled into this other guy who just got kicked out of his mistress's house on the
Past because it was past curfew.
and they, the British had a curfew. They were none of them were supposed to be out, but they wanted to let their brethren in Lexington and Concord know they were coming. So Kyle, they got
Yeah, so
horses and took
they took
off.
off on horses, and the random guy that they picked up that left his girlfriend's house too late, they came to, I guess it was a wall or something, and he jumped over it. Paul's friend, who he had recruited, tried to jump and fell off his horse, so he was done for the night. And Paul actually got caught by the British soldiers. They confiscated his horse, and he had to walk home.
Yep.
So
So the
that is the
guy,
true story of the midnight ride of Paul Revere.
yep, he was the most famous one. So, and apparently the best looking, as we'll find out in a second.
Yes. From this gentleman, Mr. Sam Adams, who maybe you've had one of his ice cold beverages.
Which we
But
had several in Boston.
yes, but we also learned that that is not his picture on the Sam Adams beer because he
But
was not an attractive man.
he was not a marketing tool for the company, and so Paul Revere is actually on the Sam Adams that
So
we drink today.
the picture on the Sam Adams beer is Paul Revere. And then this is a gravestone for the 5 men that were killed at the Boston Massacre.
One of them
So
was our tour guide, Crispus
Crispus
Attucks,
Attucks, he was actually the first person killed.
and
And
then several other there.
yeah,
But
we'll get into that because we're going to visit that actual site here coming up
we'll see
soon.
the site. But it's a good story on how that went down.
And this is just a little joke. This is the Beantown Pub, and our tour guide said it faces the cemetery we just left. He said it's the only place you can have an ice cold Sam Adams while staring at ice cold Sam Adams because it
And
faces his gravestone.
And apparently that was back in the day, and they used to hang out there.
Yep. So then we stumble across King's Chapel, which was the first permanent established Anglican church in New England. So
And so what this trail we're on is called the Freedom Trail, and it leads all through these different sites. So it's really cool because Kyle will show you pictures of it later.
yeah,
but you
it's
get to
just and
stumble
it's
on all this
built in.
stuff.
You can kind of see it here, but it's just this trail. It's built into the sidewalk. So when you go to Boston, you just follow it on the sidewalk, and it shows
And
you
it
every
takes you through all the historic sites, but also interesting neighborhoods, great restaurants. We found things,
So
Little Italy.
So this is Old City Hall that we're coming up on. It was where Benjamin Franklin started going to school, but they said he actually dropped out. So they have a statue of their most famous dropout
It was
out
a school
front.
first.
There he is. And it's
Yes.
now a Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Of course it is. We didn't have time for the steak, but
Yeah.
so neat story on this little plaza. There's
It's the
some
oldest cemetery in Boston.
Yeah. And some guy, I can't remember because he's one of the statues. We saw a bunch of them, but he bought this bronze donkey on vacation, brought it back and had it cemented out here in front of the place. And people were very, worried, not worried, but they thought it was very bizarre. And he just said, look, it symbolizes the workers and working hard. And that's where the symbol of the Democratic Party came from.
But he actually just
nowhere.
bought it because he really liked it.
He thought it was cool.
So
And
of course,
then,
this made the Republicans mad. So he's like, okay. So he put some elephants in these footprints and says, stand in opposition.
Stand in opposition. So as you guys know, Mass is a pretty blue state. So that's where the donkey came from. And they are not representing the elephant as huge there.
Not so much.
No.
And some of these buildings, we forgot to figure out what names they were. So, but they were cool.
But cool old architecture into these new glass high rises everywhere. And here's the OG State House.
Here's the old State House here. This is the side.
So those steps up there, or that balcony, is where the Declaration of Independence was originally read from.
Right
Fun
here.
fact fun fact, the Queen came back 200 years and read the Declaration from there, and they reinstalled the British lion and unicorn, which I thought was bizarre. So I had to read about this when I got home. But because the British and the Americans have been teamed up for so long on those sides, it was a sign of peace on both sides. And the lion and the unicorn actually were time capsules. They found some cool stuff from the 1600s, coins and newspaper clippings. And then the tour guide was talking about the symbol of England is a lion because lions are native to England, we guess. I don't
Yes.
know. And then the unicorn, the mythical unicorn, was the only beast that could kill the lion, and that represents Scotland. But the unicorn is always chained. There's chains around the unicorn because the British have taken over the Scotland, and they're still part of the United Kingdom. So interesting symbolism and kind of fun.
Again, there's the balcony where the Queen read from. So this disc here is the actual site of the Boston Massacre. So that is where soldiers killed 5 colonists.
They had a big riot. Everybody came out at past curfew. Were very upset with the British, and 6 redcoats came out there, very nervous, and things got heated.
And it was actually turned out to be a big misunderstanding, but it ended up costing 5 people their lives. So
yeah, and Crispus Attucks, our tour guide, was who was represented in his period costume, was the first person shot. He grabbed a musket when they pulled the muskets out, and then
trying to stop everything, but it went off.
And then it
but this,
escalated.
I believe this. I can't remember which bank this is. Bank of America, I think. But this is where the soldiers were standing, where it started. This American flag here in the middle that symbolizes where the docks of Boston used to start back
It's
in the day.
marshy.
They've expanded way out.
Way out on this little peninsula. Cool old clock tower that's very, surely iconic. We didn't hear as much about that.
And this is, and I'm probably going to butcher the name, Faneuil Hall, something like that.
I'll do just as bad at it, but I think he got close. It starts with an F, and there's an A-N and an I and an E and an L and a U or something in there. But this is cool. So the top of that weather vane there is a grasshopper.
And was also a time capsule.
Not a cricket, not a locust. And so, if you lived in Boston or if you're from the area back in the day, you would have seen this tower as a merchant coming through town, and everybody knows it's a grasshopper. But they did that because they didn't want when the British came over and were trying to spy on the common people, they didn't necessarily know this information. So they would say, what's on top of Faneuil Hall? And if you didn't say grasshopper, they knew that you might be shady.
And they could execute you. Like, it was
Yes.
pretty serious stuff. So then we made a stop at the Union Oyster House, and of course we made new friends because that's what we do at places like this.
We were tired from the tour and we're just like, hey, this is the oldest oyster house in the States. It's so cool. It's on the old district of Boston, and I wanted Kyle and Dad to be able to see this. My brother had been there before. Our friend Nick has been there before. He suggested it again. So we're pretty wary, but we just want to get some oysters and a pint before we Uber back for the birthday party and for the night at our last night in town. So here we are.
So we're starting to wear down a little bit there. And
Absolutely.
then these are all the stops. If you follow that Freedom Trail and the sidewalk from start to finish, these were all the places that you'll see while you're in Boston. There's 16 of them. And it's pretty amazing.
Really cool.
There's the oysters that we ordered. There we are. And then we met these friends at the birthday party. And you might have already said this, and I missed it, but they were so impressed when they came in because they didn't think there's enough seats. And we were like, well, we'll scoot down for you. It's not a big deal. And they said, you guys aren't from Boston.
They immediately knew we weren't there because our Southern hospitality, and our immediate reaction was like, well, let's scoot over and give these guys some room. And apparently in Boston, that's the move, not the move, because they've seen The Departed a lot more than we have. But this gentleman is really talkative. There was one of his friend's 60th birthday parties. They were trying to do a 15 pub crawl, which I totally respect. This was pub number 4 for them. And
they were already winding down. So I'm not sure they made 15.
They had but it was a lovely conversation, good entertainment, and just sharing some stories back and forth from the south to the north. So
then we're back on the road, and right behind it is the oldest tavern in America, the Bell in Hand Tavern.
We skipped it.
Go ahead, Josh. You know more about this.
Yeah, I've been in there once before, but we skipped it because we were tired. But that would have been neat to get a pint. But they wrote part of the Constitution in this place, so stuff like that everywhere.
So here's the actual Freedom Trail. So this runs through the sidewalk in Boston. All you have to do is follow this brick trail, It'll
Everything's
lead you.
awesome. You start on it and everything's awesome.
So here, if you can kind of see, follow my pointer, see it even runs through the crosswalks.
And you see some of the architecture, I guess, there. So cool. It's a
Uh,
pretty city.
Shout out to my sister Monica. We saw Monica's pasta shop, so I took a picture.
This is not Monica from Friends.
No. So then we're headed to Paul Revere's house, and it was about to close. We're like, it's only $6 a person. We might as well take a look. So here it is.
What did I say? That place was built in 1620 and he owned it from like 1770 to 1800 or something like that.
I think it was built in 1680 and he bought it in
1680.
1770 because it was almost
Yeah.
100 years old when he bought it. So,
But it's the oldest house in Boston, still there. It's ginormous for an old house. And keeping with tradition, as may or may not have happened in Abbey Road, accidental pictures were taken inside where they were maybe or maybe
Westminster
not.
Abbey. Westminster Abbey.
Yeah.
So this is a shout out to our buddy Nick. We kept the tradition of taking illegal inside pictures alive.
What did I call it? What did I call it?
At Abbey Road.
Down. Oh, Abbey Road. I wish.
Which that's the next episode.
Yeah.
We have some footage from that. But yeah, so we didn't get a lot of pictures inside, but yeah, this is Paul Revere's house, who had 16 children, by the way.
So that was interesting.
So when he wasn't fighting the British, he was making babies, I guess, and bells, because this is one of the
bells and silver and gold plating, copper plating the state house. So it was a cool courtyard there where he's at too. And there's the store. It used to be, at one time it was a storefront in Boston, and it still has that storefront, aesthetic when you're walking past it. It was incredible. The boards, the flooring boards from the timber they had back in the day, they had to be 15, 20 inches for each slat. Original floors, original wallpapers.
And the original beams. Yeah, it was very cool to see. Very, very worth $6 to go in and look at.
Yeah.
For sure. And this whole part of town is basically Little Italy. So tons of good restaurants and stuff.
It was fancy and beautiful and just I couldn't believe that I hadn't seen Boston like this before. It was really cool. Another cool park we walked through. They're everywhere you turn.
This is Paul Revere on his horse here.
We're back, guys. We had a brief interruption here. We're back on the Freedom Trail with Paul Revere. Just want to give a shout out to my boy. There's Job back there. You'll see him in some of the episodes representing the Stones when we went to the show. You got the swim trunks, Thanks, Job. Hey, what do you got? No, that's your Cardinals hat, not the Red Sox hat. That's all right, bud.
So yeah,
Cardinals are where it's at.
That's right. That's right. My Cardinals wall can't see it. It's behind the camera, but I have a entire Cardinals wall. Yes, we'll talk about that another time. So here we are, making our way past the Paul Revere house, past the statue, and here's just some of the building. I think there was like a little theater or something down there. I remember right.
There's
like a public theater.
There's a cool little public or little little small theater. There was everywhere you look in Boston. There's another corner. These houses and balconies of people's lives walking past and just neat.
Yeah, very cool. And here's a little fountain right before we get to the final destination here, which is the Old North Church.
Yeah, but just once again, eye candy everywhere in Boston. As we're wrapping up a little bit here at the Old North Church where America started, this is where Paul Revere lit the light that signaled that the Redcoats were coming to Lexington Concord,
This is where he hung the lanterns, one if by land, two if by sea. So he hung the 2 lanterns to give them warning that they were coming.
This is where the whole thing started, with and then the Queen coming later on to read the Declaration, symbolizing one colony that's actually still happy with her, I think.
Yeah, so here's
cool church.
So here you go, the signal lanterns of Paul Revere displayed in the steeple. Yeah, in the country of the march of the British troops to Lexington.
So those bricks were laid before then. That stuff's been around forever.
So again, that the Freedom Trail, periodically they'll have this plaque throughout there just to, I guess, kind of show you're still going the right way, little markers. But yeah, it's so cool that they just put that in the sidewalks so you can just walk through the city.
The whole All of New England's really fun. Boston is definitely the king of New England. It's the capital, but there's the little states, Mass and Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont and Connecticut and all those have really cool places like this and beaches. It's definitely worth getting above New York City and seeing with that corner of the New England.
Very thin
Cool
little
little
house in
house
there. And the entrance to it, you actually had to go through a privacy gate to get to the
over. No telling how long it's probably original. It's probably been there
It's,
forever. It's because it's across from one of the oldest
Yeah.
cemeteries, probably
yeah,
at
this is
least
the
in the country, but not
number
Boston.
number 2 in Boston.
They already had it chained off, but it's still cool to see from the street
The
level.
the Cops Hill burying ground.
Lots of bunny rabbits.
Yes, there were a lot of rabbits running. And this was closed, so we were actually taking pictures through the fence.
Yeah, this was the end of the trail, so this is where we were posting up to call the Uber to go back to the Airbnb and settle in.
Yeah.
This
Quick
the
passing shot of the Boston Garden.
where the final start tomorrow. The NBA
Yes.
finals start.
Yes.
We couldn't stay in town long enough, and the $700 a piece tickets were a little steep, but we definitely considered it.
And those were probably for the upper deck. So this headed out. I had to have one more bowl of chowder before I got on the
Yeah.
plane to head back to real life here.
Yeah, he
But,
sent this as him and my dad were able to get an Uber back. They're flying out close to the same time, same gate, and he sent this while we were already driving back, and I was jealous of it. But we found some more good food on the way back.
But,
But
so,
yeah, that
yes,
wraps up.
That was our quick Boston trip, but we got a lot in a short amount of time, as we tend to do. But it was awesome.
You got to pack it in. You got to pack it in, and like we said, we're there to tour. We're there to see what's going on. We can digest it. I can say with just that trip right there, I have been to Boston. I feel very comfortable, suggesting Boston and things to do there, so even if you get a weekend, sometimes, guys, it's worth it. When you're going to cross Fenway off your list, when you're going to see this stuff where the revolution started, it's incredible, mind blowing. It was mind blowing.
I can't stress enough to baseball nerds like myself. You got to get to Fenway. You got to find a way. It's just incredible.
And as special it was to me, it was radiating off Dad and Kyle. You could see it. The baseball, long love for all that. They both played, so it was fun.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. But
go ahead, Kyle. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it wraps up our Boston tour.
Yeah, that's Boston. 4 weeks. Kyle's coming back up here for Nova Scotia Part 2, so we're going to go run around and see some of the same stuff we did before. Dive into some different stuff in the valley, some different wineries. Hopefully do some history tour downtown in Halifax and check out some of the history that's kind of on par with Boston. It's Halifax is little Boston. We didn't get to do as much of that last time we was here, so I wanted to see the Citadel and some of the towers and parks and forts downtown and the wharf and all that good stuff. So that's something to look forward to. And yeah, with this, I guess we'll see next time on Beyond the Buzzer. Thanks for tuning in, and
don't forget, we still have one more piece to our England trip that we got to finish, but schedules with
your
4
Brandon
people.
Fans are only
he'll
Brandon
be back.
Fans are only one episode away.
Yeah, Brandon Fans, he will be back, so never fear. But yeah, perfect. like Ace One was saying, subscribe, give us a shout out every now and then if you have any questions or anything you want us to talk about.
Yep. And me and the Duke are all about it. The more we can dig into places, we'll let you know places we're going, and I'm happy to take suggestions on where to go and all that fun stuff.
Definitely.
And the Verbo we stayed in was awesome. We'll have to throw it up in the links at some point. But if you ever had a chance to stay at Boston, I highly recommend it. They were great people, great host, and fireplaces, hammocks in the background, backyard, yard games, board games inside. It was great.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, so that wraps this up. Our Please Come to Boston episode. So I am Kyle, aka the Duke.
Ace One, go Cats.
Peace.
Peace, guys.